Of the national headlines that we are on top of for you this morning. The FBI arrested a man today in its nearly 5-year investigation into pipe bombs that were planted in Washington on the eve of the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. This is all coming from a law enforcement official, what they told the Associated Press. So the arrest is the first time investigators have identified a suspect in an act that's just frustrated investigators, fueled conspiracy theories, and just stayed unsolved, basically, in the aftermath of the Capitol attack. So that official spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss a case that's not been made public just yet. But the arrest happened Thursday morning. The suspect is a man. The official said no other details were available right now, including possible charges. But those pipe bombs were planted January 5th, again, of 2021, right near the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees in Washington. No one was hurt before the devices were rendered safe, but the FBI has said both of these cases could have ended differently. They could have been deadly. And in the years since, investigators have asked for the public's help in identifying the figure seen in this surveillance video that we're showing you right now. They've struggled to get even just basic answers about a person's gender, a motive, if it was tied to the Capitol riot a day later, when supporters of President Trump stormed the building to try to block certification of his 2020 election loss to Democrat Joe Biden. So looking for a breakthrough here, the FBI last January released some new details on this, including an estimate that the suspect was about 5'7", and then previously unseen video showing the person planting one of those pipe bombs. So again, for years, they've just tried to figure out who this was. There's been hundreds of tips that have come in, thousands of video files reviewed, and numerous interviews that have been conducted about this. So again, it's been 5 years, and we're told the FBI has arrested a man, yes, in connection to their investigation of these pipe bombs being planted. So we will certainly let you know any other updates that come from that really big news today. Also this, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg on Wednesday ordered 2 January 6 defendants pardoned by President Trump to be refunded in full for restitution payments made and for fines incurred as part of their earlier criminal cases. So this was a reversal from just months earlier when the same judge rejected their bid for repayment. Judge Boasberg used a memo order to outline the fairly complex case history for Cynthia Ballinger and her husband Christopher Price, both of whom had been tried, and they'd been convicted on misdemeanor charges in connection to the riots, ordered to pay hundreds of dollars in assessment fees and restitution. So Boasberg order effectively clears the way for the government to refund both of them in full for what they paid for this. New decision, he says, is a result of an appeals court decision, as well as the timing of President Trump's pardon, which came at the same time their case had been pending appeal before the D.C. court. So both defendants, Ballinger and Price, had been in the process of appealing their convictions when President Trump took office for a second time. So back in July, the judge rejected their request to be refunded $570 each in restitution payments and then other fees as part of their convictions. They later asked the court to reconsider that, and that cleared the way for this ruling that came down on Wednesday from the judge. So Boasberg in that new order basically cited the same precedent from July, which states that a pardon alone is not sufficient to entitle a former defendant to any property or compensation lost as a result of that conviction. So the memo goes on and goes one step further. The judge considers not whether a court can fully order repayments in the case of vacated convictions, but if doing so is legally sound under the Appropriations Clause and with the respect to issues of sovereign immunity, which protects the government from being sued without its consent. So the judge concluded the court does have the power to order such repayment. So again, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg is ordering the 2 of those defendants to be paid in full, basically, for the fines and the legal fees that they incurred in trying to fight their case. On to this one now, talking about Derek Chauvin. Of course, he's the former Minneapolis police officer convicted of second-degree unintentional murder for the death of George Floyd. Well, he has filed an appeal, and he's asking for a new trial. So let's dig into this a little bit further for you. This filing was submitted November 20th of this year, and the Minneapolis Court of Appeals had previously denied an appeal from him from that new trial back in 2023. The filing states that Dr. Andrew Baker performed an autopsy on George Floyd in the days after his death and determined that he died of cardiopulmonary arrest. And that just complicated law enforcement's restraint, neck suppression, not neck compression, but they didn't find any evidence of injuries consistent with asphyxia. So 4 other doctors looked into this. They determined that Floyd died of asphyxia. However, Chauvin contends their determinations relied on video evidence of Floyd being arrested and restrained by Minneapolis officers. So the filing here states that Chauvin retained a group of physicians at the forensic panel who will testify that the methodology used by the doctors who testified in the trial is not generally accepted in the scientific community. Chauvin also said a forensic analyst of critical incident review to explain the limitations of the video evidence. So here's what happens next in all of this. Chauvin is currently in custody at the federal institution in Big Spring, Texas. He's set to be released from federal prison November of 2037. So again, he has filed an appeal and is asking for a new trial. Well, if you tried to use Venmo and had some issues, maybe things wouldn't log in or you weren't able to make that payment that you were trying to make, there's a reason for that. There's been a service issue, but it's been fixed. Things are back up and running after users reported trouble trying to send money, trying to receive money for hours. This was a big problem. I saw lots of comments on social media, people asking, is this something that you're experiencing? Because I'm experiencing this. So here's a little bit more on what they're saying about the problem was. Also, this Venmo is saying that they were sorry for the inconvenience that it caused, and they're saying they've addressed this with their team. This was in a post on X. So Down Detector, that's a website that tracks when things are down on popular apps and websites. They shared that the problem had been spiking at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. So again, this was yesterday. And like I mentioned, a lot of people were posting about this, just trying to figure out what the issue is. The company didn't provide any details about what may have caused this outage and for things to be down, but peer-to-peer payment apps, just like Venmo, have exploded in popularity, which makes it, super noticeable when one like Venmo is down. So again, the good news, they were able to get things back up and running, but no, you're not crazy if you were trying to Venmo someone and weren't able to. There was some kind of system issue, but things are back up and running at this point. So here's another one. I need to go through my refrigerator and take a look at some of the shredded cheese that I have, and it's probably a good idea for you to do the same. That is because a recall has been issued for 260,000 cases of shredded cheese sold in stores in 31 states and Puerto Rico, and it's due to a really serious issue. We're talking possible metal fragment contamination. That's according to the FDA. So that recalled shredded cheese is sold under a number of names. I'm going to take a look at this to be able to provide you with what they're saying about this. I mean, these are brands that are sold at Target, at Walmart, at Publix, at Aldi, at so many of the places that we shop and that we get our shredded cheese. So the FDA has issued a Class 2 warning for this recall, which means that this is a very serious issue, and they want you to take a look. They go through what could happen if you consume these metal fragments, and very, very serious. So we're taking this seriously. They're saying so far there's been no injuries or illnesses that have been reported from this, but Great Lakes Cheese Company issued a recall for multiple shredded cheese products, including Happy Farms shredded Italian blend cheese and Happy Farms mozzarella shredded cheese on October 3rd. And the FDA is reporting multiple states, Georgia's included that, and Puerto Rico are affected by the shredded cheese recall. So we actually have the full list of brands, because some of them are store brands that are impacted by this recall. And if you go to our website, fox5atlanta.com, and search for the story, you can do a check and make sure that you don't have some of this shredded cheese in your refrigerator. Okay, if you are on TikTok, you probably try to keep up with what's happening with TikTok in the news. So we want to share this story with you out of Hawaii. The state of Hawaii has filed a lawsuit against ByteDance. Of course, that's the parent company of TikTok. And they're saying that this platform was built to be dangerously addictive. Those are their words, for young users, and misleading the public about the harm that it poses. So this is the state of Hawaii filing a lawsuit against the parent company of TikTok. So it's a 106-page complaint filed in Hawaii's First Circuit Court, and it claims the business model is built on compulsive use with programs structured in the platform, basically just to keep you strolling. You know, one video rolls into the next, and they're saying that it's highly addictive for young people and impacting young people in a negative way. So the Attorney General there said the features like the For You feed are basically an endless scroll, autoplay, push notifications, and likes that are all built to maximize time on the app. And this is a quote saying every additional minute on the platform generates more personal data and more advertising revenue for TikTok. So the feature is also engineered to influence users' neurobiology is what we're seeing in this suit as well, especially dopamine production and tactics similarly used in the gambling industry. This is all according to the complaint. So they're saying that while the addictive techniques are harmful to all users, attorneys are alleging children are particularly vulnerable to this because of their limited ability to self-regulate screen time. So a substantial part of TikTok's user base is under the age of 18, with internal records showing millions of users are under the age of 13. And that's some info to come out of this complaint as well. So we haven't heard from TikTok just yet. They have not released a statement about the suit. But the state's action is seeking to stop TikTok from employing what they call these harmful and deceptive practices, require meaningful safeguards for children, and ensure TikTok accurately discloses the risk associated with its platform. So again, this lawsuit filed by the state of Hawaii against the parent company of TikTok, ByteDance. That is certainly a story that we will stay on top of for you.